what is the 1% the top high achievers take? What is the 80-20? What is the best ROI supplement? That is what we're going to talk about today, the 7 supplements of highly effective people. Firstly, I want to divorce you from the idea of RDAs, recommended dietary allowance, just because they're a little bit inaccurate. And at the end of the day, they're just to prevent a deficiency or a disease. They're not for overall health optimization. So most of them were created in the 50s to the 60s. Obviously, our understanding of health has changed drastically from then. We used to think lobotomies were a good idea. So the RDA of vitamin D3 is 600 IU. You would get this by standing in the sun for 90 seconds on a hot summer's day. Obviously, we all do that more, so we're all exceeding it already. The RDA of vitamin B12 is fairly low, except if you've ever drank an energy drink, you've 1,000 times exceeded that and you're still here today. The RDA for iodine is 150 micrograms, except right now, as you're watching this video, people in mainland Japan are consuming around 13.5 milligrams of iodine every single day through seaweed consumption to no ill effect, and they have some of the highest lifespans and the lowest rates of cancer in the developed world. Vitamin D3 is more of a hormone masquerading as a vitamin, and it's essential for everything. If you really want to optimize your life, you want to optimize your exercise, your diet, and your vitamin D3 levels, as it is the master key. Every cell and tissue in the human body has receptor sites for vitamin D3, as it is so important. Get it from the sun at the best case scenario, except if you live in winter climates like myself, you can supplement it around 10,000 IU and have a happy light to get best of both worlds. It's fat soluble and stored in adipose tissue, so you can actually stock up on vitamin D3 during the summer. For most people, 10,000 to 20,000 IU is recommended. For a severe deficiency, around 50,000 IU is recommended daily/weekly. Remember, for 10,000 IU, that's like standing in the sun for 30 minutes. A vitamin D toxicity, in my opinion, is a non-issue, as a lot of times it just mirrors a K2 deficiency, which you absolutely want to take with vitamin D3. There's MK4 and MK7 within that. In the 1930s, so almost like 100 years ago, they did a vitamin D toxicity study on dogs, and they found that there was no UL of vitamin D toxicity. They gave them 100,000 IU, 200,000 IU, a million IU, and there's no toxicity. Maybe there is toxicity of vitamin D3 at some point, except I think it's massively, grossly overestimated. To cause vitamin D toxicity, you'd have to take 100 to 200,000 IUs daily for a long period of time, and you would absolutely notice some side effects before doing so, and you would notice hypercalcemia, which is excess calcium. Except if that were to happen, you could just drink 2 to 3 liters of water a day and it would help get rid of it. I actually got my genes tested and I found out that my vitamin D receptors are mutated in that they don't work as well as other people, so I need double the dose of somebody else to get the same effect from vitamin D3. So speaking of thiamine, vitamin B1, some countries have a culture, thiamine has a culture, where if you look at EO Nutrition's YouTube channel with 200,000 subscribers, his whole channel is based on thiamine. This B vitamin, because it can very much be the key to a lot of people's health, where a vitamin B1 deficiency is known as a great imitator or mimicker because it can mimic a lot of other symptoms. It's a very vital thing to take, and even so, high doses of vitamin B1 can cure Parkinson's. There's a doctor in Italy called Dr. Costoni who used around 2 to 5 grams of thiamine hydrochloride for putting Parkinson's into remission, which is pretty crazy. And even thiamine derivatives like benfotiamine and TTFD are currently studied and currently used for the treatment of some neurodegenerative diseases. So there's absolutely something there. Thiamine essentially gets into the cell and blocks the degradation of the cell, protecting the cell's integrity. It's essential for the production of acetylcholine, ATP synthesis, dopamine levels, antioxidant ability, gut health through the vagus nerve, and even vision. There's a bunch of forms. It kind of just depends what you respond to. With thiamine, with the long-standing deficiency, sometimes there's a paradoxical reaction where your symptoms will get worse transiently before they get better permanently. You can absolutely notice this with thiamine. If that's the case, just take lower doses and take supporting vitamins like magnesium, glutathione, other B vitamins. You can take allethamine, if I pronounce that correctly, which is derived from garlic, TTFD, developed in Japan, and a lot of people use this because it's very bioavailable and it can cross the blood-brain barrier. You could try salbutamine, which can upregulate dopamine receptors in the prefrontal cortex through a homeostatic response. Or you could try thiamine hydrochloride, regular thiamine, which is what I use because different things work for different people. This is the cheapest, where you can spend $8 on Amazon. Next, there is iodine, where if you watch one of my latest videos, you know I'm all aboard the iodine train, which is kind of shocking to me because it is so effective. The first few times I've taken Lugol's 2% solution, it's almost like the first time I've took amphetamine or so, where I just have so much energy, so much motivation, so much mental clarity, and it's just astounding. It really surprised me. Specifically, it works on thyroid function and producing the thyroid hormones of T3 and T4, which are essential for growth, development, cognition, metabolism. If you look at Ray Peat's philosophy, it's all based around thyroid function because it can be the master key for a lot of people. The thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland at the front of your throat. Essentially, low iodine equals low thyroid hormones, which equals low IQ. So it's a very important thing to optimize. Iodine displaces toxic halogens like bromide, fluoride, chlorine, which are all neurotoxic at some level. It displaces them, so it can help you detox, and it can increase thyroid function. If you think about it, our iodine deficiency has decreased around 50% in the last few years, except our ingestion of toxic chemicals throughout our environment or our food supply has only increased. So it makes sense to take a higher dose now more than ever. So the RDA is 150 micrograms, where most iodine doctors or experts recommend between 12.5 to 50 milligrams. So it kind of depends on your risk tolerance with iodine. Not that it's unnecessarily risky to dose higher, as we've done it throughout the decades and it has a very high safety, efficacy, and level, except it goes against the mainstream medical advice. So it kind of really depends where you fall on that. I would encourage you to investigate and research some of those iodine experts like Dr. Brownstein, for instance, or read some books on the topic. Overall, I think it's a good idea to take around 1 milligrams of iodine to start off, just to be safe about it, where that's half a drop of a 2% iodine solution, and that stays within the UL for iodine dosage. Next is zinc, which Adderall is a dopamine reuptake inhibitor, and so is zinc, and maybe that's why zinc is so effective for ADHD, and even more effective for ADHD when paired with Adderall. Zinc does a bunch of different processes in the body. It's very much like magnesium in that way, where it's responsible for over 300 coenzyme reactions. Every part of the body uses zinc, and it's the second most abundant trace mineral in our body. The doses for most people is 11 milligrams elemental for males, 8 milligrams for females, 20% higher if you exercise, as you lose some through your sweat. Overall, you could take higher doses of zinc, between 12.5 to 25 milligrams of elemental zinc. You could go higher than that, but you do run the risk of zinc toxicity, which is no fun. There's a few different forms of zinc. Zinc oxide is kind of poo-poo zinc, like literally they use it as a laxative. So zinc glycinate and zinc citrate are fairly standard, and they're fairly cheap as well, and they're a decent zinc form. There's other forms as well. And honestly, if food be thy medicine, as Hippocrates says, the best way to get zinc is just through oysters, where it provides a good amount of copper too, which is very important for overall zinc function. And it's an easy thing to do, and it's an overall health tonic. Next is magnesium, where 50% of US adults have a magnesium deficiency, which isn't just not ideal, it is potentially dangerous, where a magnesium deficiency is a carcinogen, where it can increase the rate of cancer, because magnesium, where it is responsible for transcription, DNA repair, and replication. Low levels can contribute to a heart attack, because magnesium controls heart rate and controls blood pressure levels, as well as balancing the electrolyte levels within the heart. Even so, high magnesium levels is associated with 40% lower risk of all-cause mortality. So it's very important, and it's very essential for the HPA axis, which essentially controls our anxiety levels. Health experts disagree on everything, except they unanimously agree that magnesium is important, because it is. There's a bunch of different forms, and it kind of just really depends what effect you want to get. Overall, you want to aim for around 200 milligrams of elemental magnesium, as we do get some in our diet. And so this could look like the form of magnesium L-threonate, glycinate, or other forms too. Magnesium L-threonate is kind of a poor magnesium donor, so I'd recommend to take that with another form of magnesium, like magnesium glycinate, for instance. Magnesium L-threonate is better for cognition, as it can cross the blood-brain barrier. And a little side note on that too, where if you just top up your magnesium levels, some will get to the brain as you just increase levels throughout, and it'll go all around the body. A deficiency of choline results in a 15-point IQ drop, which is then rectified when there is a deficiency of choline in the form of an egg. Choline is so vital for so many things. If you look at most neurodegenerative drugs, they all affect the cholinergic system, as it is so essential for cognition, for memory, for focus, for your salience network and deciding what to put attention to, as well as your memory encoding. It's very crucial. Even your gut-brain axis with impacting the vagus nerve. One egg yolk contains 300 milligrams of choline, and it's probably the most effective way for people to get it in their diet. That being said, around 40% of adults in the UK have a choline deficiency, and most core nootropics affect this neurotransmitter system, which is very telling. That being said, it's not without its caveats, and you can definitely go overboard with it. And if you are deficient in choline, it can lead to cognitive issues as well as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, as choline is essential for hepto functionality, liver function. Supplement additional choline or just supplement this independently. Alpha GPC, or CDP choline, or Alcar, acetyl L-carnitine. So you can give yourself more precursors through eggs or supplements like alpha GPC, and then you can also inhibit its breakdown. And that is what the famous Alzheimer's drug Napazil does, in that it's a very strong acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. You can also do this herbally with ginkgo biloba, huperzine A. Ginkgo biloba actually has some of the strongest acetylcholinesterase inhibition effect compared to a bunch of other herbs, so it's something to consider. That being said, I've never felt anything very strong from ginkgo biloba, as have a lot of other people. They've not felt much. Creatine is the major amino acid that is found in red meat that is responsible for cognitive function, muscle performance, and overall health vitality. It is something that everyone and their mom should take, literally, as it's so good for health span and lifespan. And even so, a small dose, 5 grams of creatine, can acutely affect cognition in a positive way through a bunch of different parameters. And that was very intriguing to me, because I always thought it was something that you felt after you took it for a couple of weeks or days or so. As well as supplementing creatine to those that are deficient, aka vegans or vegetarians, resulted in a dramatic IQ increase, as it's so important, as it increases ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is essentially energy currency within your brain. Mental energy is correlated to positive cognitive performance. If you look at coffee, that increases mental energy and increases a bunch of different cognitive markers or so. So creatine does this in a more soft and subtle way. Ignore the idea that it is harmful for your kidneys or that you need to do a loading phase. Most of this comes from people taking a contrarian point of view on the internet to challenge a major thing to get more clicks or views, which I've definitely done before, so I understand, except it's a little bit less warranted here. I would argue even with the loading phase that you don't even need to do that. That's kind of just popularized by creatine manufacturers to make you buy more of the product. I would say 5 grams a day keeps the doctor away. Check out this video where I discuss the mineral deficiency that is making you dumber. Yes, did I use too big of words? Was that hard to understand? I'm just kidding. Check out that video on screen.